Dear friends, greetings on behalf of St. Thomas, Medina. My congregants, if you could take a moment to stand just to identify yourselves in the choir as well. We are here tonight to show you may have a seat. We are here tonight to show our support of and express our affection for you all. We are here to extend our friendship to you and to the wider Jewish community. We are here to pledge our commitment to fighting anti-Semitism, which we know is on a rise. As you know, the Anti-Defamation League recently reported that there has been a 337% increase in anti-Semitic incidents in the U.S. since October 7th compared to last year. And we feel as siblings in faith that now more than ever it's important for us to show our support for you all as a community of faith and to extend our friendship. It was a real gift to have your rabbi with us a few weeks ago. He actually came to St. Thomas School and spoke to about 120 students, and then came to St. Thomas Church to preach and, as he mentioned, teach. You are incredibly fortunate to have him as a rabbi, and I'm grateful for our emerging friendship. Thank you, Rabbi. As I thought about this Torah portion, I was told it's Exodus 32, the golden calf. I hope I have that right. Okay, I'm doing good. I felt compelled to offer you a word of comfort and encouragement and a message from the heart. This is a message from the heart. Temple de Hirsch. God has not forgotten you. God will never forget you. God sees you. God sees your pain, your people's suffering, your vulnerability, and your fear. In moments like these, when God may seem far away, know that God is nearer to you than perhaps one might think. God will continue to be faithful to God's promises to you as a people, just as God was faithful to your ancestors. God will continue to see you through this chapter, just as God saw your ancestors through trial after trial and into this present moment, even when reality was bleak. When you found yourselves in the ruin and rubble of your life, God will not, did not, could not ever forsake you. God will continue to see you through your Egypt, your wilderness, your exile, your expulsion. God's promise for a future day is still sure and true because God's covenant promises are trustworthy. Even in the face of violence, confusion, and fear, remember, O Israel, remember who you are and whose you are. The Torah reading for tonight is a poignant reminder of this. It reminds us of a God who promises to meet you, even when we waver in faith, when we are tired beyond our tears. Recall with me, Moses is up on Mount Sinai with God. Apparently, he's not returned for some time. The people begin to panic and ultimately give in to fear. And remember, Moses is Israel's lifeline to God, acting as God's mouthpiece, as God's guide to the people of God's covenant. With a prolonged delay of Moses, it was as if God had fallen silent. And in that silence emerged the fear that God had abandoned them. In a state of panic, they said to Aaron, "Come, make gods for us. Who shall go before us as for this Moses, the man who brought us up out of the land of Egypt? We do not know what has become of him." In this moment, Israel's imagination gave in to fear. Their hope gave in to despair. Their will into weariness. Exhausted from Egypt, they did not have the energy to trust that Moses would return, that God had not forgotten them, that the whole thing was not some twisted dream. So they trusted in their own strength. They made the golden calf, and by the way, this would be the first of many episodes, as you all know. You could teach me. Israel would continue to give into their proclivity to mimic the other nations to ensure their nation's security. They would cozy up to fertility gods to ensure their survival. They would make war horses like the Assyrians to defend themselves. They would store up grain like the other nations. They worshipped idol after idol to ensure their crops yielded food so that they did not starve and their women bore children. You know these stories well. And when you compare what God had just done on their behalf, what God had promised that God would do, their attempts to match God's power and promises was, well, as my 8-year-old once said, like worshiping a calf of Velveeta cheese. Let me explain. My husband, not me, I can't take credit for this one. My husband reads the Bible, the Christian Bible, to our kids every night before bed. And after reading about God's gracious protection and provision for Israel night after night from Egypt to Sinai, we got to this story. And my daughter, peeking ahead at the picture of the golden calf, blurted out with religious indignation, "Wait, what? After all God did for them, they worshipped a calf made of Velveeta cheese?" Her understandable misinterpretation of the Bible illustration was illustrative. For me, at least. When we consider all that God has done for Israel, their apostasy, our apostasy, my apostasy, it's as ridiculous as worshiping an idol of Velveeta cheese or gold. You take your pick. We take our idols so seriously. And to be fair to the Israelites, when you consider all that they had gone through, it is no wonder that they had a fatigued faith. Years under Pharaoh had ground down their bodies and will. In the wilderness, their souls were catching up to their bodies. It was only in their freedom that they could begin to process their trauma. I mean, if I were Israel, I would need an elongated spa day. I mean, come on, you go from being slaves to following God in the wilderness, eating manna, sleeping on God knows what, following a pillar of fire by night and a cloud by day. They had to have been tired. They were just human. Little did they know that this moment would form them for their future moments. Exile after exile, expulsion after expulsion, war after war, anti-Semitic threat after anti-Semitic threat. The wilderness, this golden calf episode, would be their training, your training, for future moments where you are invited to place your trust in God. Even when Israel failed to trust God, when they were being human, tired, fatigued, God's mercy would enfold them. God's forgiveness would meet them right where they are. That's what this episode reminds us with, even when it took Moses having a bit of a back and forth with God up on that mountain. People of faith, be strengthened by this reminder. God has not forgotten you, nor will God ever forget you. God sees you. God sees your pain, your suffering, your vulnerability, and your fear. Even in moments when God may seem far away, God will continue to be faithful to you. And when you find yourself clutching for your own golden calf, whatever it might be, because you are exhausted by your present reality, know that God will meet you in that moment, and God will find you just where you are and invite you to hope again, to imagine that future day, that day of the Lord. So continue to have faith, my siblings in faith. White-knuckled faith, tireless faith, enacted and undergirded by your resolve, your will. For what is faith? But I'm looking at you, Rabbi. Emunah, trust. The trust of Abram, who became Abraham. The trust of Sarai, who became Sarah. As the prophet Nehemiah said, that even when we could not find it in ourselves to remember the miracles God had performed among us, God is gracious and compassionate, slow to anger and abounding in love. Remember, O Israel, remember who you are and whose you are. Amen.
Amen.